last time we talked about the differences between phonemes and allophones, right? So phonemes versus allophone. We say that an allophone is like a non-significant sound, right? Sound. And an allophone doesn't make contrastive meaning, right? And you can predict where an allophone occurs, right? Allophone is predictable in terms of where you will find them, where they will occur, right? Whereas for the phoneme, the properties of the phoneme are the opposite of the allophones, right? So they are significant sounds in a language. They make meaning contrastive. And also phonemes are not predictable. Right. And the two words that we learned were complementary distribution, remember? Meaning that the different allophones of the same phoneme will occur in different places. But when you combine the distribution, when you combine all of them, it will be complete, okay? That's for the allophones. And for the phonemes, the distribution is contrastive distribution. Okay? And we looked at some examples of phonemes and allophones in both Korean and English, right? And one particular type of allophone in English is the aspiration, remember? Oops. When do you find aspirated allophones of P, T, and K? P, T, and K are stop, right? Voiceless stops, right? So where do you find the aspirated P, T, and K? You remember? In stress syllables, right? And initially, meaning initial of the stress syllable, okay? And in other syllables, you have unaspirated P, T, and K, okay? So let me ask you this question then. What about, if you have not finished, we find the aspirated P, T, and K in the initial position of stressed syllables, okay? In unstressed syllables and after S, then unaspirated P, T, and K, okay? So unaspirated P, T, and K elsewhere, meaning after S and in unstressed syllable, right? So initial of the stressed syllable, okay? And then for unaspirated P, T, and K after S and in unstressed syllables. So in other words, elsewhere, everywhere else where you don't find the aspirated P, T, and K, okay? And we call this complementary distribution because not the same, right? After S and in unstressed syllable, they're not the same as the stressed syllables. But all of them together, they complete, complementary. The distribution is complete, okay? So then if I have a word, let's say petrol. You know petrol? Gas, gasoline, gasoline. Huibalyu, right? In Korean. Petrol, you have P and T, right? Voiceless stop. Which one is aspirated? Which one is unaspirated? When we pronounce it stress is important, right? We say petrol, right? Petrol. So stress is there. So can you guess where the aspiration will occur? So it will be here. That's aspirated. So T is not aspirated, right? So petrol. So it's like this. Pet like that, and then tro like that. Oops. Okay. What about this word? This, how do you pronounce that? Patrol, right? Patrol. Patrol is to kind of go around, like policemen patrol the city in police cars, like that. They patrol the city. They go around the city observing, looking at people, watching people. So that's a verb, patrol. And the stress is here. Patrol, right? Patrol. So can you tell me where the aspiration would be? The aspiration would occur on this T, right? So it would be the patrol, like that. Okay? And this one will receive less aspiration or even no aspiration, even though it's initial because it's not stressed, okay? So if it's not stressed, then you have the unaspirated P, okay? So you see the difference between the stressed one, petrol, and patrol, right? There's less aspiration in P, almost as if there's no aspiration at all. Okay. So that's the question that I got from last time from some of you. You asked me if it's initial position, but it's not stressed, where's the aspiration? My answer is that the aspiration is not as strong as in the stressed syllable, as if there's no aspiration at all, even though it's initial, right? But it has to be initial and stressed, okay? Initial and stressed in order to receive aspiration. Okay? And last time I also got a question about loan words. Loan words are difficult to predict as to the pronunciation. So some of you, we looked at this pronunciation of this word, right? Taxi in Korean. Maybe most of you, because you are educated, you can speak English, you pronounce this in a Korean context just like you pronounce an English word, taxi. But there may be some people that pronounce it like taxi, like that. Or at least, loan words are difficult to predict. Word like this, laser, right? Laser that you use. Laser, I have some Korean students who I talk to who would pronounce this as leisure, like that. So it depends on, I mean, how original you want to be when you pronounce loan words, right? Or, you know, LASIK? LASIK is a type of eye surgery that you use to correct nearsightedness or farsightedness or astigmatism, right? You use laser to kind of shape your cornea, right, of the eye. So this pronunciation is LASIK in English, LASIK with the S. LASIK with the S. But in Korean, I think I don't know how you would, LASIK like that, like that. So it's clear that this is the kind of the allophone when it's before the E, right? The front vowel like that. So in this case, the loan word here is kind of domesticated into English and pronounced like, it's domesticated into Korean and pronounced like the Korean way. So LASIK like that, but it's LASIK in English like that. So loan words are difficult to predict. And there are some loan words from French that are different in American and British pronunciation, like the word garage here. In American it's from French, okay? It's not English word. In pronunciation, in American pronunciation, we would pronounce it like garage, garage. garage, like that. And then the stress is here, garage. Park your car in the garage, like that. Where's the garage? 주차장, right? And in British English, they pronounce it, I think, garage. Garage, like that, which is a totally different way. This is more kind of like English, real English pronunciation, because we say that the stress should fall on the first syllable, right? But American pronunciation is more like the French, the original French pronunciation, garage and garage, like that. Or even the word, you know, this type of food, people pronounce it like so different ways. Croissant, croissant, like French. Or even some people just call it crescent roll. Crescent is like not full moon, right? Half moon, like that. So that's the same. This is the most like English way to say it, to call it crescent roll instead of croissant, something like that. So loan words are difficult to predict, but if people are educated, they might want to pronounce it. They might pronounce loan words in the original way, like LASIK, instead of the way that language phonology would do it, LASIK, like that, LASIK, like that. So anyways, that's what we talked about last time. So today we'll talk about a different thing. I know that there are some examples that we didn't finish in class last time. There are 2 more allophones that we haven't talked about, but I will just skip them for now, and then we'll talk about this, okay? We talked about allophones and phonemes. Today we'll move on to phonotactics, okay? The way I introduce phonotactics is, if you look at this list of words, we have 1 to 10, prill, skrik, blaft, armut, thol, lasik, tosp, magala, denom, and flitch. Which of these are possible English words? None of these has meaning, but which of these are possible English words? You can guess. You think 1, prill, is a possible English word, even though you don't know the meaning. Do you think 1 is a possible English word? Yes, right? Prill, we have thrill. We have other words that sound like it, right? So 1 is possible. The second one, skrik, maybe possible, right? Because we have things like skirt and so on, like strength and so on. Blaft, possible or not? Yes, possible, right? But number 4, armut, not possible, right? We don't usually have R before an M, okay? Number 5, thol, yes, possible. Number 6, not possible, right? We don't usually have L before S. If anything, it has to be S before L. Slick is good, but lasik is not good, okay? Number 7, tosp, maybe, right? Maybe. Number 8, magala, no, because we don't have M before G, like that. And number 9, denom, no. We don't usually have D before N. And number 10, possible, flitch, right? And so on, okay? So that's what we, why could you tell me, how could you tell me which ones are possible and which ones are not possible? That's because you know the phonotactic, what we call the phonotactic constraints of English, okay? So phonotactic constraints refer to restrictions on possible sound sequences in different position of a word. So remember, when we talk about phonology, we talk about sound patterns, right? So how sounds pattern together, how you arrange sound. It's not just like you can arrange them randomly. It's not like you can make up any words. You can have M before G. You can have D before N. It's not like that. But there are patterns that are like deep down, that we don't really see but we know, right? So we refer to the arrangement of sounds or organization of sounds as phonotactic constraints, okay? So in English, for example, English allows maybe TR at the beginning of a word but not at the end, like that. We have words like tree, right? But you never have TR at the end of a word like that. Or N with a tail in the middle or at the end of a word but not at the beginning. So we never have N in the beginning, but we have things in between like finger, right? Like that. Oops. Finger. So this is like in between. And at the end, like fishing. So fishing, like that. But we never have it in the beginning. We never have like we never have N in the beginning like ngo. Like we don't have that. Never in the beginning. Maybe in other languages we do, but not in English. In English, we can have up to 3 consonants at the beginning of a word. So up to 3. So up to 3. 1, 2, 3 in the beginning of a word, okay? This is in the beginning. So we have C, C, and C. Consonant, consonant, and consonant. Up to 3. That's the maximum. That's the maximum number that you can have in English. Up to 3. But it's not like you can have anything in this position. The first must be an S for sure. If you have up to 3, the first must be an S. The second one, P, T, and K. P, T, or K. And then the last one has to be one of these 4. R, L, W, O, Y. It's not like you can have anything, but this is the constraint of English, okay? So you can have things like strength, right? Strength, 1, 2, 3. Strength, like this. Right? 1, 2, 3. It has to be that order. And R cannot come before a T, for example, if you have up to 3. Okay? And I believe that this is not in Korean, because in Korean, the constraints should be that you break it up into a consonant and a vowel, consonant and a vowel, consonant and a vowel. So maybe when you pronounce strings, you have to su, tru, ring, like that, maybe, right? But English, you allow that, right? So one of the things that happen in Korean is words like spy. This is a cluster. We call it cluster. Cluster meaning a group of things, right? So this is a consonant cluster, okay? In English, you can have up to 3, but this is only 2, right? Still S and P, right? So in Korean pronunciation of this word, you might say supai, right? Supai. So you have to break it and insert a vowel here, and then you have like that, supai, like that, right? And the result might be that when you break it up, you have 2 syllables instead of 1. Like in English, English is just spy, like that, right? So you just have 1 syllable. But when you break it up, you have 2 syllables, 1 vowel, another vowel, right? Or even maybe if you separate this, sapai, right? But what happens is that people usually aspirate this P. Korean people usually aspirate this P. So you pronounce it like supai, supai, like that. And like Gil-ho, when he talked to me, and he said, Chris Da-hyung, I have spice in your class. Like this class, he has spice. Some of you ask, his spice. So he pronounced it with this aspirated P. So he is a living example of this kind of breaking rule, this kind of phonotactic constraint rule. So so it's like he inserts this vowel, and then this is kind of the initial position of a word, right? So you would pronounce it. Whereas in English, it's unaspirated because it's after the S, like that. Okay. So learning the phonotactic rules. knowing the phonotactic rules will help you know about what is permissible and not permissible in a particular language. Okay? Now, we'll move on to this. Another topic for phonotactic constraint is how you arrange, how you make up a syllable in English. Okay? So a syllable, remember a syllable is the vowel, right? So you count the vowel. If you have one vowel, one syllable, right? One vowel equals one syllable, right? In the case of a diphthong, two vowels, a diphthong still counts as one syllable, right? Because a diphthong is a series of two vowels pronounced close together, right? Successively one after the other, so count as one. So in a syllable, you have this kind of structure. In a syllable, you have, of course, the most important thing is the vowel. We call it the nucleus or the core of the syllable. So that's what holds a syllable, okay? And then you can have an onset. Onset is the beginning of that vowel, of that syllable. The onset include consonants that come before the nucleus. And then whatever else you have is the coda. Coda, again, refers to the consonants that come after a vowel, okay? So a syllable consists of a nucleus, must consist of a nucleus. It's a must, okay? Because if you don't have the nucleus, if you don't have a vowel, then you don't have a syllable, of course, right? But you can optionally have an onset and a coda, okay? An onset could be two consonants, one consonant doesn't matter, or three consonants as in this chart. A coda could also be a consonant, two consonant, or three consonant, doesn't matter. You can have an onset and a coda, but you must have a nucleus, okay? And the nucleus and the coda together, we call them the rhyme, okay? Or R-I-M-E. You can spell it R-H-Y-M-E or R-I-M-E, same thing. So we explained this, right? Syllable is the smallest independently pronounceable unit, right? So you can pronounce it. When you pronounce a consonant, it's not a syllable because only a vowel constitutes a syllable, right? When you pronounce this, it's s, s. When you do the s, you have to put in the vowel like that. But by itself, the consonant doesn't constitute a syllable, okay? So a syllable is the smallest independently pronounceable unit, and it may have an onset which consists of one or more consonants before the vowel, and the rhyme consists of the nucleus and the coda, right? The coda is the consonants that you may have after the vowel, after the nucleus, okay? And two more distinguishing features, open syllable. An open syllable refers to a syllable that doesn't have a coda, okay? A syllable that doesn't have a coda, meaning there's no consonant following the vowel, there's no consonant following the nucleus, in other words. But the closed syllable is a syllable that has some coda after the vowel, okay? Pretty easy. So the word though here, this is how we pronounce it. This is the vowel, the nucleus. There's no consonant following it, so it's an open syllable. We don't care about the spelling, okay? Because GH here is not pronounced. And then the word thought, we have one sound after it, so it's a closed syllable like that. Okay, so far so good. Now, we will think about the syllable structure. Okay. If you see one syllable word, that's easy, right? But what about if you see maybe a 2 or 3 syllable words? For example, let me look at an example here. Boundary. Boundary. Like when we pronounce it, it's bound out, right? Boundaries, like that. Boundaries, okay? So at least there are 3 syllables here. This is a diphthong, so we count as 1. Diphthong is a series of 2 vowels pronounced together. So 1 syllable, 2nd syllable, and 3rd syllable, because there are 3 vowels, okay? Now, what counts as the onset and what counts as a coda of what syllable? That's a more complicated issue, because here, I mean, the question is, N here, is it a coda of this syllable, or is it an onset of the next syllable? So that's a different issue, right? And also sometimes could be a tricky issue too. So this will tell you how to recognize the syllable boundary, okay? How to recognize where the syllable can end and where the next syllable will begin, okay? This is a set of rules that will help you. So first, give every vowel a separate syllable. This is what we did, okay? So the first step is, this is a vowel, a diphthong counts as 1. So 1, 2, and 3. So we have 3 syllables here, okay? I'll do it again. I'll do it here. So bound, rees. So we have 1, this is the nucleus, this is the vowel, this is the vowel, so this is the vowel. So they are all the nucleus, right? So they are all the nuclei, right? Now, what is the next step? If more than 1 syllable, join consonant or consonants to the following syllable, providing that the resulting cluster can occur at the beginning of a word. Now you join, right? Join consonants to the following syllable, right? So here we see this consonant, right? You join it to the next syllable, right? To be the onset. So T and D could be the onset of this, right? So you can join with this syllable. However, the condition is providing that the resulting cluster can occur at the beginning of a word. Now you look at these two, N and D. Have you ever seen the N and D series, N and D sequence in English? Are there any English words that start with N and D? No, right? No. We don't have words like Nadord. We don't have that, right? But we have words like second, N and D. At the end we have. But N and D in the beginning, we don't have that, right? So this violates the phonotactic constraints that we talked about earlier. So this is not possible. So the N here cannot be linked to the D, okay? So the N has to remain on its own, okay? You have to leave it by itself. But the D could be joined to this particular syllable, okay? What about the R? The R here, the rule step 2 says that we have to join it to the following syllable, right? So the R could belong to this syllable, okay? Because R can start a word, right? So the D also belongs to this syllable, but the N cannot belong to the second syllable. So the N is left by itself. B, of course, could be joined to V, like that, okay? The last step, join any remaining consonants to the preceding syllable. So in other words, N here, which is left by itself, right? Because we cannot join it to this syllable. So N has to belong to that syllable, okay? So in other words, you have like 3 syllables, and you have 2 boundaries here. Bound as 1 syllable, de as 1 syllable, and rees as 1 syllable, okay? And now you can just write out the syllable structure, okay? So syllable 1, I say S1, right? Consists of the onset, which is the B, right? And it consists of the rhyme, which has the nucleus being this vowel, and this is the coda. The N is the coda, So all of these belong to the first syllable like that, okay? The second one is the same thing, right? You have syllable, a syllable, but it's syllable 2. Consists of onset and rhyme, and the onset is the D. And the rhyme has only one nucleus. And in this case, as you can see, there's no coda, right? No coda for the second syllable because there's no consonant after it. And then rees, that's the third syllable. Again, it consists of the onset and the rhyme, and the onset consists of the R, the rhyme consists of the nucleus, which is the vowel here, and the coda is the Z, like that, okay? So this is syllable 3. So that's how we divide up syllables, okay? So I think step number 2 is important, and you have to be careful about joining the consonant to the next syllable only when you know that it can occur at the beginning of a word, okay? So the word plant, so could be like this, right? So this one is easy because you have only one syllable. So of course, this is the nucleus, and the coda consists of 2 because there's nothing else, and then the onset PL is an okay sequence in English, right? So could you maybe do one for conflict, okay? I'll give you maybe 2 minutes to do the word conflict. And we'll do more. I'll give you the handout here. Can you pass it out, please? Can you pass it out? Can you draw a syllable tree, like based on the word conflict, okay? So conflict, so 2 syllables, right? But the end should belong to the first syllable, or the end should be part of the second syllable, like that. Can you pass it out? Conflict could be a noun and a verb, right? So the pronunciation might be different. Conflict is a noun, conflict is a verb. But still, there are 2 syllables, regardless of whether it's a noun or a verb. Conflict. Oops. Conflict. Does anyone need more handout? Junhee? What's your name? Huh? Hyun Chang. Oh, these guys. So can you do the tree for conflict? So the first step, don't forget, assign the syllable, assign the nucleus to the vowel, right? So you see that there are 2 vowels only, like conflict. So A and I. So you assign the nucleus. So this is the nucleus, right? The nucleus first. So you recognize the nucleus, right? And then assign all the remaining consonants to the following syllable. So these guys should be assigned to join that syllable. But you have to consider whether they are permissible in English. NFL. Can you have 3 sounds like that in English? 3. C, C, C. Can you have that? No. Remember we say S, the second sound has to be P, T, K, and the third sound R, W, L, and Y. So unless it's this sequence, you cannot have that, right? Unless it's this sequence. So NFL, not possible. So you have to think the other way. So maybe N, you cannot touch it now. But FL could be a sequence, right? You have words like fling, flower in English. So FL is possible. So it could belong to the other syllable like that, okay? So now you know how to do it. So N is then something that you cannot touch before, right? So it's the coda. So this is the coda, okay? And both of them make up the rhyme of the syllable, right? And then, of course, the first one is whatever is before the vowel, then it has to be the onset. So that's syllable 1, like that, okay? The second thing, you do the same. So this has to be the onset, right? FL could be 1 onset, and the KT, which is left, has to be the coda. And then both of them make up the rhyme, and the rhyme and the onset make up syllable 2, like that. Okay? That's how we do it. Now, so any questions about how to syllabify? Syllabify is to make it into different syllables, right? If not, then we'll do practice, okay? So on the handout, on this new handout that I just gave you, there are 4 words, starting with fuming, boundaries, contagious, and construction. We already did the word boundary, right? So we already did that. So could you do fuming, contagious, and construction using the same kind of steps that we took, okay? So start with fuming first, okay? When we pronounce the word fuming, we usually have a Y sound, right? When we pronounce it, we say fuming, like that, fuming. Just like when we pronounce the word few, we usually have the Y, right? Few, like that, few, right? Few, okay? We usually have the Y, few, or view. View is V, Y, and U, view, like that, okay? So fuming, so how could you syllabify it? Contagious. So you have to know how to pronounce it, contagious, right? Contagious, contagious. And then construction, right? So we do it based on the pronunciation, remember? We don't do it based on the spelling. So you have to pronounce it and then transcribe it first, okay? So we do it based on the transcription, not, we do it based on the sounds, not the way that it's spelled. Okay? So I should give you maybe 5 minutes. You have to transcribe it first and draw the syllable tree based on the transcription, not based on the spelling, because the spelling doesn't matter. Okay? So let me show you. So for the first one, fuming, this is how we pronounce it, right? So we do it based on our pronunciation. So first we start with the vowels, right? So there are how many vowels here? 2, yes. So this one, right? So the vowel is the nucleus. So this one is the nucleus. So 2 syllables already, right? Now the problem is whether this M is part of that first syllable or part of this. So our rule says join it to the following syllable, right? Join it to this syllable if it can start that syllable. We have a word that starts with M in English, right? Minimal, mine, whatever, right? So we can join it to that syllable. So it seems that the division is here. Okay? So this could be the onset, right? And this has to be the coda. And they both make up the rhyme. And the rhyme and the onset make up syllable. So this is syllable 2. So for the first one, we do the same. So this could be the onset. So this could be the onset. And then there is no coda for this one, so that's the only rhyme thing that they have. So this is S1. Onset and rhyme make up one syllable. Okay? But there's no coda here. This goes against our expectation. Oops, I forgot the microphone. This goes against our expectation a bit, right? Because we know that we have the word fume, F-U-M-E, and then we add ing to the word. So it should be fume as one word and ing as the other syllable. But when we pronounce it, this is how we pronounce it, fuming, like that, okay? So pronunciation is different, perhaps is different from the way we add grammatical endings to the word. So that's what we tell you. So pronunciation might be different from the grammatical thing, like we add ing to the word fume, like that. So I usually have that problem when it comes to Korean, like the word dinner in Korean, cheonyeok, right? I don't know, and I cannot remember how it should be spelled, cheonyeok like this, or cheonyeok. It has to be one way or the other. But, yeah, but, so which one is correct? This, cheonyeok? But it's pronounced like that, right? Cheonyeok, like that. So same thing with the division of the syllable, because sometimes you actually link this to the next syllable, right? So same thing. Okay, so can you do, maybe you need more time to do contagious and construction, okay? So I'll give you maybe 2 more minutes to do contagious and construction. But first you have to start off with the correct pronunciation, right? Contagious means contractable, right? Meaning like spreadable, like the disease is contagious, meaning you can get the flu from someone else. You can get the virus from someone else. So that's contagious, okay? For contagious, we have this, right? Contagious, right? Contagious, right? So how many syllables do we have? 3, because we have 3 vowels, right? So we start off with the vowel. That's the nucleus. That's another vowel. The nucleus, that's another vowel, so it's the nucleus. Now, the next step is to join the consonants to the following syllable, if it can start that syllable. So N and T, can they both start a syllable or not? No, right? We don't have N and T that start a syllable. We have N and T that ends a syllable, right? Like the word can't, C-A-N-T, can't, cannot, right? So we have, but N and T, by themselves cannot, right? So maybe T can belong to this syllable, but N has to be left to the first syllable, okay? So we have that, and then just. So here we have just one sound, j, right? So we have to join it to the next syllable because that's the rule. So that's the boundary. Contagious, okay? Now, then this could be the coda, and we join that to make a rhyme. and this is the onset, and the onset and the rhyme make up syllable. So that's syllable 3. This is the onset, so that's syllable 2, onset, and then this is the coda, and they join to make the rhyme, and we have syllable 1 like that. Okay. The second syllable doesn't have any doesn't have any coda. It's an open syllable, in other words, because te is an open syllable. It's not closed by any sound. And I got an interesting question while I was walking around. The question is, why don't we include, like, for example, this one to this syllable? Why do we have to have that second step that says join it to the following syllable, right? You might have that question because one of the reasons is in pronunciation, we don't have to make a syllable heavy if it's not necessary. Meaning, if you attach it to the end is the coda, right? And then it will make that syllable heavy in terms of pronunciation processing because you have to have contage like that, contage and then us like that. It's not necessary to do so. So when we pronounce words, when native speaker pronounce words, it's better to shift it to the next syllable and to have it as the onset rather than have it as the coda. So that's why the second step is to join it as the onset of the next syllable, right? Rather than have it as the coda or the preceding syllable like that, okay? Because, or else it would be heavy. You have to pronounce it like contage us, which is not necessary. We prefer to do it contagious like that. So we prefer, in other words, we prefer to have an onset rather than a coda in a syllable, okay? This might not be the grammatical way to do it. So in other words, this might not be what happened with fuming, right? Because in fuming, we have the word fume plus ing. So the M should go with fume, right? Grammatically speaking. Yes, that's right. But in pronunciation, native speaker would push the M as the onset of the next syllable. Fuming, like that, rather than fuming, okay? So that's the reason why we have that second step that says push it to the next syllable as the onset, okay? Maybe that's the same for chonyok, the dinner word, which I can never spell correctly. Chonyok or chonyok. Construction. The word construction is construction, right? And the stress is before the word shun, right? Construction. So construction, we have 3 syllables, right? So we start with the vowel, nucleus, nucleus, and nucleus, right? Now, we have to, the second step is to push everything after the vowel to the next syllable, if they can start a syllable. Now, can we have 4? No, studer. Can we have that? Can we have this all to the second syllable? No. So maybe STR is possible, right? So we assign that to the next syllable. So maybe the syllable line is there, kan, and then struck. And then what about this two? K and the hook. Can they occur in the beginning of a word in English? Ksh. Do we have that? No. So like that, right? So we have to divide it like that. Now we can go to step 3. So step 3 is, of course, join the coda. So this is the coda, this is the coda, this is the coda, and you join it with the nucleus to make up the rhyme. Like that, okay? And finally, we can take care of the onset. So this is the onset, and that's one syllable. So STR, that's one onset, and it makes up another syllable. And the sh is the onset, and that makes up syllable 3, like that. Okay. If you look at this K, remember last time we talked about the unreleased K, right? Unreleased K. Unreleased is when you don't let the air out because you have a consonant following it, right? This is another consonant, it follows the K. So we don't say in English, we don't say construction like that. We just say construction. You don't release the air. So this is the unreleased K. If you were to go into detail, you can say this is the unreleased K, like that, remember? And that first K, what kind of allophone is it? Aspirated or unaspirated? Where is the stress? Where is the stress? Remember, shun, the word that ends in ION. Where is the stress? When you see the ending, ION, the stress is the syllable right before it. Doesn't matter, television, precision, whatever shun you have, okay? It's the syllable right before it, the penultimate syllable, right? Penultimate. So in this case, the stress is struck, right? So construction, like that, construction. That's why this is a schwa sound, okay? Schwa is found in an unstressed syllable most of the time. So, that K is not aspirated. There's less aspiration, so construction like that. And this T, is it aspirated or unaspirated? Is it aspirated or unaspirated? Unaspirated, because it's after an S. See that? Doesn't matter whether it receives stress or not, because the S takes away the air already. So the S is very important. It overrides the stress thing. Override. Override meaning it prioritizes the S, okay? Stress doesn't matter if that's the S, okay? Just like that. Before we, what about contagious here? Which one? We have two stop. Why is the stop? Conte. Which one is aspirated? Which one is unaspirated? It again depends on where the stress is, right? And I already taught you. IOUS ending. Where is the stress? The penultimate syllable, right? The syllable right before you, the OUS. Like the word spacious, delicious, right? Whenever you see IOUS or ION, the syllable right before it will receive stress. So the stress is te. So now you can tell. So the T here is aspirated, contagious, like that. And the kun is not, right? The K is not. So you need to know where the stress is most of the time. And then there are some suffixes that you know, IOUS, ION, IC, IC, equal like that, right? That where the stress falls before it, okay? So I don't want to start off the new thing yet. So we'll save it for Monday. The next thing we'll study is sound changes.